Should be live. It's the streaming. I don't see the video. Just wait a second. Just got notification. Okay, there we go. And we're live. It's just delays. I love it. The restream delays kill me sometimes. I saw
Oh,
you
I stopped.
struggling with that the other day.
Yeah, we just stopped and went to Twitch. Yeah, but
I saw
we're more
that.
esports, so we kind of want
Yeah.
lag is a big problem. So
Yeah, no, I totally understand. But hey guys, welcome to another fantastic Crypto Mondays. Today is a little earlier of an episode than we usually have. Today we have MandelDuck with us here in the Crypto Monday room. We're going to be talking about some gaming. MandelDuck is a contributor. He also does works on ZBD with micropayments. So got a lot of interesting questions here for him. I'm super excited to have this. MandelDuck, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. So, first and foremost, give me a little, I gave everyone a little background about you, but give me your formal background so everybody can know exactly what you do, who you are, and what you contribute to the space.
Yeah. So hi everybody. So I kind of got started with Bitcoin gaming back in 2013. So I guess really when it first started. And the first thing I did is I made an iPhone game, an iPhone app, a simple game where you would just tap the screen and you would swing a monkey and the monkey would fly, and you'd have to kind of get the aim of the game was how far could you swing. But I decided to make the game so as you played, the game would just reward Bitcoin to you. So it's like kind of the first integration of Bitcoin in a game. And that was back in 2013. And it kind of became popular in the space. I made a couple of other games and was doing that for a while. And then I was kind of involved in the early kind of Bitcoin and also token space. And then we started to see a lot of issues with like transaction fees and scaling. And one of the solutions, which I'm sure we'll get into, is something called the Lightning Network, which is a scaling solution for Bitcoin. And fast forward to now, and that's basically what I'm doing now. I set up a company with a couple of other people called Zebedee, or if you're in America, ZBD, depends how you want to say that. Doesn't matter.
I thought I was saying it wrong because I heard you pronounce it. I was like,
yeah.
You're wrong this whole time.
No, it's like American English pronunciation, right?
Yeah.
So it's all good. It's all good. Yeah. And so our company, we aim at making SDKs and APIs to let other game developers add Lightning into their games. And on the side, I'm also developing games with Zebedee and also personally that kind of adds Lightning to games.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's basically it.
That's basically it. Yeah. Like you don't do anything at all. So okay, you threw me off of a little bit with the gaming with the monkey. I was just like, what? I haven't heard about that, but that's pretty cool. So I don't know where to start, honestly. First, tell me about micropayments in gaming, because that's something that a lot of people don't understand. I know I joined the tournament the other day when they were giving out Satoshi.
Oh, cool, thank you.
I have a question regarding that because I noticed some people would go back and not finish the game just to collect the incentive. So I guess how do you allocate, payments of, I guess, BTC or any currency, for the heck of it, into these games so that, it not only incentivizes the player to play, but also it makes sense for the game?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll just start because if people aren't familiar with the term microtransaction, because microtransaction or micropayments can mean something different in gaming. So kind of micropayments has a negative meaning in non-crypto gaming. It generally means like when you buy a game and then you have to spend a lot of money buying loot boxes and stuff, and there's kind of been a pushback against that. So it's not that type of micropayment. It's not where the user, is buying these, $2, $3 kind of extras in the game. What we mean by micropayments in Bitcoin gaming is that it's even smaller. The idea that you can stream money, so you can purchase something for a cent or less than a cent. So in one of my games, you can actually, the currency of the game are bananas. So I think somebody needs to be muted. I can hear an echo. I think that's better. Cool. Great. Thank you for that. Yeah. So I had this game where, originally, if the game was on iPhone, I could sell, say, the smallest payment I could do is like $1 with the in-app purchase. So I'd have to kind of like sell $1 and I'd have to sell like 500 bananas for that dollar. But with Bitcoin, I can do things where I can just sell the user one banana for 1 cent. It's it's kind of, you can't really do that in gaming at the moment because the traditional system, you have to pay with a credit card and it's quite expensive. So you can only do kind of like $1, $2 payments. And I think that kind of limits the type of gameplays that you can do. But what I'm more interested in with gaming, and I think you mentioned this with the tournament we did yesterday, I'm not so interested in the player buying things. I kind of like to explore where the game sends the player Bitcoin. So we had this game that you attended called Bitcoin Rally, which is like it's Mario Kart with Bitcoin, and the player would drive around, and Mario Kart has coins that you collect, but the coins don't really do anything. I think the coins make you go a bit faster, but they don't really do anything. It's just people like the feeling of picking up coins. But in our game, the coins are actually worth 10 Satoshi, so it's not much, but the coins are worth a bit less than, I think, like a fraction of a penny. But as you play the game, as you pick up these coins, you can easily kind of earn up to $1 or $2 if you play regularly. So that's the idea with micropayments. And it was kind of like an accident why I did it that way, because originally in my first game, I wanted to use Bitcoin to let people buy things in a game. So instead of using a credit card or in-app purchase, they would basically buy a game item with Bitcoin directly. But that was not allowed on the App Store. Apple don't let you do that. So I kind of thought, okay, well, maybe I'll flip it around. Maybe, yeah. So maybe I thought it kind of forced me to do the opposite and kind of send the player Bitcoin, which kind of economically didn't really make much sense, giving the player Bitcoin. But it turns out there is actually a kind of interesting economic model where giving players small rewards with Bitcoin, even if they're not much, it kind of incentivizes them to play more. And we kind of see very increased retention rates that people just, even if it's a small amount, people just like the feeling of getting like kind of free cheap stuff. They probably spend more on electricity and time playing the game than they'll earn, but it just kind of, I guess it makes the points and the little coins that you get in game, it just makes them a bit more fun and a bit more valuable. And it is possible to kind of, eventually earn a few dollars. But that's if
you think about it, a regular game like, I don't know, Fortnite, you don't earn anything. So, I mean, you're doing the same, work, same electricity cost. And in this instance, you're actually getting a little more back,
Yeah, and also it depends on the type of game. So generally what we do with generally the games that are running for 24 hours every day, it's, it's kind of hard to give the player, they can't really earn a lot of money, but as the kind of ecosystem evolves, we kind of see that skilled players will be able to actually earn a lot of money. But what we do at the moment is we actually have sponsors, so we do these monthly events called Mintgox, which is like an online esports events, and the sponsors will give us a lot more money. At the moment it's small. I think we got about 5 million sats. I think we did last time. But as the sponsors grows, we could easily just kind of give out, a few, thousands of dollars. In the last tournament, we had the Bitcoin Rally Racing tournament, and I think the player who came first, he got 1 million satoshis, which I think is about $100, a bit more, So that, and it's definitely not bad. And the player who came last still got some satoshis because they picked up some coins, So as we're kind of starting off small, but for example, if we had a sponsor who would come along and would say, yes, I just want to drop $1 million into this tournament, we can easily kind of just spread that out through coins in the game that people pick up. And I think we'll get there eventually. Yes, well, I think we'll get there eventually, I think if you said 10 years ago that somebody could win $2 million playing a video game, you say that's crazy. But then was it Fortnite, like some 14-year-old won more than Tiger Woods won for playing the Open Tour. And that's not crazy anymore. So I think we'll definitely get there with Bitcoin and crypto. And there's a lot of money that can move around in Bitcoin, and there are crazier things have happened. There was a guy on Twitter, I think during the bubble, who he basically said, hey, I'm actually an accidental Bitcoin billionaire. Tell me who I should give $1 million to. And people would say, hey, this charity is good. Okay, and you just drop them $1 million, right? So I think something like that could happen. We could have a very rich Bitcoin whale or OG who wants to help promote Bitcoin, and they could easily drop $1 million, and we could do a large Bitcoin event where people would race around, or we have a first-person shooter game people could play like Fortnite. A game like Fortnite Light Night is coming out. So I think it's going to be very exciting going forward.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited to talk more about Light Night, because I'm going to have what's his face on? I can't see. I have the thing up in my face, but I think his name's Josh. He'll be next week. Wait to that next week.
Maybe?
Carlos, that's his name. Yeah. He does the games. His name is right over here. I can't see because I have over there, panel in front of my face. But so is there? So I was gonna ask, because these games can be rewarding, but also I was listening to you when you were talking I was watching people kind of go back and kind of go collect the coins and not really make it to the finish line.
This was Mintgox last week, I think. Maybe.
Yeah. I saw that. I was at both, but does that take away from I guess people wanting to be competitive and come in first place? How would you guys combat that? Yeah.
So in one of our tournaments, obviously the aim of a racing tournament is to try and finish first. If you can't, try and finish second, but it's to try and finish at the best position. However, there was because the game also has coins that you can collect. A player, I guess they must have thought, I'm probably going to come last. I'm not going to win a decent prize, so I'll try to make the money back by just driving around and collecting all the coins. So I think that's more down to game design, right? And we've actually thought about this. I think it's kind of interesting, though. In a way, I kind of like it in games when people break the rules and do things you're not meant to. It kind of, I think there's been one of my favorite things to do in games when growing up was to kind of not do the main story mode and kind of do things, that you're not meant to. I think Grand Theft Auto is a game I used to do this, and I didn't really do the story mode at all, but I'd make my own mini games, and I think I've done it on Call of Duty, where just for fun, you might just go around and just try to get in people's way. I don't know. I kind of think it's interesting. So I don't know. I think incentives are going to definitely change. Once the money in your game has value, how people will play the game will definitely change, right? And I think we just need to get feedback from that and kind of update the game accordingly. At the moment, for Bitcoin Rally, it's not a big thing. If they want to come last and get some coins, they can't make that much coin. I think it's okay. But for sure, if everybody starts to do that in the race would be quite boring. So I guess the way you fix that is just by having more prize money for finishing first, second, or third, or fourth. With Bitcoin Rally tournaments, we try to make it so everybody wins something, even if you come last. It's kind of, you win something, but not as much. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. I think we'll probably also see we're trying to keep it quite fun, the amount of money that you can win. But I think if we have larger prizes, I can definitely see, people trying to cheat, and things like this. And I think that's going to be an interesting challenge going forward, where people will maybe try and hack the game to give them an advantage, all these things. I guess to answer your question, I'm not really sure how to fix it, but I'm not sure everything. I don't think it needs to be fixed in some areas, and other areas we're just a more wait and see approach and just see what players tend to do. And I think it'll be kind of funny and interesting, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have another question. When
Yeah.
I was playing on the game, I had some issues regarding, I guess, loading the game. It was kind of like laggy. Some
Okay.
people, will stream the game over Wi-Fi. I remember you saying last week that there was a downloadable version available eventually. I guess, how would you combat, bigger games loading? Like, a lot of the time you have to download games onto your computer and they're really big. We're getting into the
Yeah.
cloud gaming space,
Yeah.
and it looks like you guys are more cloud gaming based. I guess, is there any upcoming like updates on the servers for people who might not have as good bandwidth somewhere, or is it you have to have fantastic internet connection or you can't play?
I think so. Actually, this was actually the second game. The first game we actually did with Mintgox was we actually had like a Street Fighter two-player game, like
Right.
and people would fight online, and that just didn't work at all on the internet. Because when you have a Street Fighter two-player game, if one person has a lag of a second, which is very common, people can easily have lag of 2 seconds. The other player kind of
Right.
has to wait for their punch, and it wasn't watchable. It didn't really work at all. So that's why we actually changed to this kind of racing game, which lag is still an issue with network issues and like still a problem, but it doesn't matter as much because in a way when you race, you kind of just you can kind of race by yourself and ignore the carts. And if another cart's position is weird because it's lagged, it's not the end of the world. The game can still continue. But this is actually a big problem in just esports in general. Generally, when people do esports, they make sure everybody's on the same continent. And professional esports players, they all kind of go into the same, well, they normally play in the same building, like professional esports. But online, if you want to be a champion esports player, you need to have a decent gaming computer and a decent connection. So that's just unfortunately, just if you have better equipment, it's just going to help you. Where with Mintgox, we wanted to make it open, so we actually had people. One person was racing from Japan, one person was racing from Brazil, and they're going to have a lot of lag on the network. Yeah, I guess I'm trying to make the game, I guess there's different types of issues. Obviously, there's network lag. We can't really do anything about network lag. Ultimately, it shouldn't matter because your racing time, the time that you take to finish and cross the line, that's kind of calculated on your computer. So it's not really affected by the network. But if you're trying to interact with other players, you're trying to hit them with a power-up or hit them with so the game lets you throw a coin to hit a car and the car will spin out of control. That will be affected by lag. So that's one issue. The other issue is that because it's a game, depending on your PC, you can get low frame rate. So we're trying to do some performance, on it just to try and increase the frame rate, which should help people. But generally, at the moment, it's a browser-based game, which is probably why it runs a bit slower. So once the game is a bit more stable, we'll probably release a desktop version where people can download kind of beforehand, and it should run a bit better because it's not running in the browser. Yeah, but the game is actually
well, because it's never mind. Go ahead.
no.
Question.
Yeah, I was going to finish saying the game. It's a game we didn't expect to make it. We just had to kind of make it as an emergency for Mintgox because Mintgox was actually kind of a very sudden thing we decided to do. We were originally going to go to physical conferences and actually have the games playable on like gaming computers that people could come up and play. But
as the you didn't make that call, hey.
Yeah, well, obviously it didn't happen. So we kind of switched to Mintgox Online, and we had to make a game quite quickly that would work online. So we're trying to improve it each month. But yeah, so hopefully it'll become a bit more accessible
going
forward.
In the nick of time because Corona, but
yeah.
I'm glad that you guys got that all resolved. So I have like one more question. It's regarding ZBD. I'm sorry, Zebedee. My bad.
It's okay. It's all good.
So I guess, how do you guys work with other companies to help them integrate the micropayments into their game? Can you walk me through that process?
Yeah. So just so Zebedee, which is the company I work for and co-founded, we're actually not a game studio. So we're just making some sample games to kind of showcase to other game studios. But we kind of realized that like games is very competitive at the moment, and like 99% of games that are made, people don't really know about. So there's only really like a handful of games that actually become successful and popular. So we kind of figured that, we could try and make a kind of a Bitcoin game, but it's probably it's probably not going to be a good game. And we've kind of seen this, I think, in the crypto space. There's lots of blockchain games, but the games actually themselves aren't that good. So like you said, we're trying to actually work with other studios, professional game studios, and try to work with them to add Bitcoin to their games. And we've made some sample games to showcase that and have something to play in the meantime. But our strategy is to work with other studios. And we actually have two approaches at the moment. One approach is we just obviously go to them and kind of show them, look, if you add Bitcoin to your game, look, players will play it more. We've got some stats that, saying that, this game gives out some small rewards and the players are coming back, each day to get the rewards so that, you can actually increase user retention. And the other strategy is to kind of add it to the game, but not tell them. So this is something I'm actually working on at the moment, and I'm hopefully will be able to bring it to a Mintgox soon. But everybody is probably familiar with like famous games like CS:GO, Counter-Strike, and Quake. So these are very good professional games, and everybody loves them. But we've actually found a way where we can add Lightning and Bitcoin to these games without people having to do anything. Like people will just go to Steam, download the game. They'll download the separate app, which kind of behind the scenes connects to the game. And then they can jump in these kind of AAA titles and instantly start to kind of compete for Lightning. So that's something we're working on at the moment. It's not proven. I'm still trying to make the prototype. But I think our strategy going forward, I think that would hopefully kind of allow us to bring a really high quality game that everybody knows and has a large audience, and also add Bitcoin to it quite easily. And then once we kind of have done that, we can kind of go into the larger studios and say, hey, look, it works, and once we start to build up a community and have, larger events and data, we think that the studios will be interested and start to explore the space more.
Yeah, that's not a bad approach. I feel like it reduces some of like saturation, and it kind of like reallocates, the workflow. So I actually like that approach.
Yeah, it just kind of
people who do studios, so that's a good one. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's just because to make a good game, it takes a long time, right? So we just thought resources. We're still a small company, so if we could in a month or two get Bitcoin working in games that everybody likes, so like Minecraft or CS:GO or Quake or something, then it's low-hanging fruit. We should do that. But of course, we're also quite interested in game studios actually experimenting with Bitcoin and coming up with new ideas, something new, which I think it's going to take a lot longer to make good games like that, because game development can take a year or two.
Right.
So, I guess in the early stages, we're just going to try and add Bitcoin to existing games and make simple sample games with and work with maybe some smaller studios, not larger studios, maybe smaller studios, but they're still professional gaming studios, to maybe add kind of Bitcoin in a small way so they can kind of get their feet wet. And then once the ecosystem grows in a year or two, we're hoping that larger studios would kind of, become more interested, and smaller studios may have had time to make a more interesting game. But we're getting actually quite a lot of interesting feedback to some of the larger studios we're talking to, and I can't name names, but we've actually spoken to one of the largest gaming studios, the CEO. Ooh. And he was very, obviously they're not going to add Bitcoin or crypto into their AAA game anytime soon, but a lot of these largest studios, they're very aware that technology can change, and new technology can help revolutionize things. So what these larger studios tend to do is they actually secretly have smaller studios under a different name, with like more indie games where they kind of experiment and try to stay fresh. So there's been interest in adding Bitcoin into those games, and I guess once Bitcoin works in those games, they'd be more and more open to adding it to the larger titles. But we'll see.
I feel like companies having like smaller like entities under them, that's like just a common thing. The other day I realized that the Realtors Association for like selling houses, all those, Century 21 and all those companies, it's under one umbrella. It's actually
Sure.
one
Yeah.
huge company. So
Yeah.
I'm actually not surprised that they have those, smaller indie game models to kind of experiment and see what can take off. I'm
Yeah,
really
well,
excited for you
Allspace
guys.
is kind
Hopefully
of
you,
owned by Microsoft, isn't it? Right. So we're in
yeah,
like
right, exactly.
it was a small. I think it's still the original studio is still developing it, but Microsoft just came in and kind of acquired them and gave them support. But yeah, so they're experimenting with VR, but it's not necessarily the Microsoft brand, but it lets them
Right.
experiment with VR. So.
Right. No, totally. So, for anybody who's interested in either learning more about Zebedee and or playing any of the battle royale tournaments that you guys have going
Yep.
on, how could they do that?
Yeah, so I think Zebedee is only interesting if you're a game developer. So if you're interested in developing a game with Bitcoin, then definitely check out Zebedee. We can find us on Twitter. I'm sure you'll link to it. We have a Discord where game developers jump in and we give technical support or just discuss game ideas. If you're not a game developer, we actually have a monthly esports event called Mintgox. And the next one, I think, is October 25th. But it's basically, you don't need a VR headset, although you can experience it with a VR headset. But you go to mintgox.com on October the 25th, and you can enjoy some esports Bitcoin gaming. You can play some games and actually get some Bitcoin from our sponsors. So it's a great way just to kind of earn some Bitcoin by playing games. And you can also take part in some of the Bitcoin esports tournaments like Bitcoin Rally. And we got a few other games coming as well. So yeah, that's the best way. So mintgox.com or Mintgox at Twitter, and Zebedee at Twitter if you're a developer and interested in developing games.
Awesome. And if anybody wants to reach you personally, where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm MandelDuck at Twitter.
Yeah, so it's literally what's spelled up there.
Exactly, at MandelDuck. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you being with me today. I had a great conversation. I learned a lot. I'm really excited to see what Mintgox has developed, and excited to see what Zebedee, sorry, has put
Yeah, it's
forward.
okay. Say Zebedee. It's actually French words, I think. Or is it? I don't know. I'm probably saying it wrong. I think it's originally a biblical word, but we actually got the name from a French TV show. But it doesn't matter.
That's funny. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I don't feel too bad if you don't even know how to say it. Thank you so much for joining us, guys.
Oh, thank you for having me.
No problem. Guys, make sure to check in with us on next Crypto Mondays. We're going to be having Carlos from Light Night Satoshi Games. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop the stream here, and we'll